The desperate signal. The observation dome of Consortium Station Epsilon flickered with warning lights as Ambassador Zirith of the Varathian Collective watched another colony world die. His elongated fingers trembled against the transparent aluminum viewport, leaving faint traces of bioluminescent residue that glowed briefly before fading. Behind him, the emergency council chamber filled with the panicked voices of 24 species, each representative struggling to comprehend the impossible truth that their civilization faced extinction. The Void Reapers had appeared without warning 6 months ago, emerging from the darkness between stars like nightmares given form. They were creatures of living shadow and twisted metal, beings that seemed to exist partially outside normal space. Their ships phased through shields as if they were nothing more than colored light, and their weapons dissolved matter at the molecular level. The Consortium's vast fleets, built over millennia of peaceful expansion, had proven utterly useless against this threat. Zirith turned from the viewport to face the council, his 3 eyes blinking in sequence as he processed the catastrophic data streaming across his neural implant. The Reapers had just consumed the industrial world of Theron Prime, home to 8 billion souls. That brought the total death toll to 43 billion across 17 worlds. At their current rate of expansion, the Consortium would cease to exist within 4 standard months. High Chancellor Mareth stood at the central podium, her crystalline form refracting the emergency lights into dancing patterns across the chamber walls. Her species, the Luminari, had led the Consortium for 3,000 years through wisdom and careful diplomacy. Now that wisdom seemed hollow in the face of annihilation. She spoke in the harmonic language that the universal translators converted into comprehensible sound for each species present. The fleet commanders report total losses in the Outer Rim engagements. Every ship we send against the Reapers is destroyed or assimilated. Our weapons cannot harm them, and our shields might as well not exist. The Chancellor's voice carried a tremor that Zirith had never heard before. If anyone has alternatives to present, speak now. Silence filled the chamber. They had tried everything. Quantum torpedoes, graviton beams, antimatter warheads, even experimental weapons that bent the laws of physics. The Void Reapers consumed it all and grew stronger. The Consortium's greatest scientific minds had worked without rest, but each new weapon failed more spectacularly than the last. Zirith felt the weight of the decision he had been contemplating for weeks pressing down on him. His species, the Varathians, served as the Consortium's historical archivists and cultural liaisons. Deep in the Forbidden Archives, he had discovered records that most of the Council believed were myths. Records of a species so dangerous that the Consortium had voted 5 centuries ago to quarantine their entire star system and erase all contact protocols. The humans. He stepped forward, his voice cutting through the despairing silence. There may be one option we have not considered. The Forbidden Archives contain records of a species from the Sol system. They call themselves humans, and according to our historical data, they are unlike anything else in known space. The council chamber erupted in shocked murmurs. Several representatives immediately began shouting objections. The Keltorian delegate, a massive being covered in chitinous plates, rose to his full 3-meter height. You speak of Deathworlders, Ambassador. The archives are clear. Those creatures evolved on a planet that should not support complex life. High gravity, extreme weather, constant tectonic activity, and an atmosphere that was toxic for most of their evolutionary history. They are aggressive, territorial, and dangerous. Zirith nodded slowly. Yes, they are all of those things. But consider what that means. They evolved to survive on a world that tried to kill them every day. They built their civilization through constant struggle against their own environment and against each other. Their history is filled with warfare on a scale we cannot imagine. While we developed culture and philosophy, they developed tactics and weapons. While we built monuments to peace, they built armies. High Chancellor Mareth raised one crystalline hand for silence. The humans were quarantined because our psychological evaluators deemed them too unstable for contact. Their aggression levels were off our scales. They fight among themselves constantly, and their entertainment media glorifies violence. Bringing them into Consortium space would be inviting one danger to fight another. Zirith pulled up holographic displays from the Forbidden Archives. Images of Earth appeared in the air above the council chamber. Blue oceans, green continents, white clouds swirling in complex patterns. It looked deceptively peaceful until Zirith displayed the planetary statistics. Gravity 1.4 times Consortium standard. Atmospheric pressure that would crush most species. A magnetic field strong enough to shield the surface from radiation that would sterilize our worlds. Weather systems that generate storms with enough energy to power our cities for years. Look at what they built on this world, Zirith continued. The images shifted to show human cities, massive structures of steel and glass reaching toward the sky. They built these without anti-gravity technology. They constructed space stations and sent ships to their neighboring planets using nothing but chemical rockets and mathematics. When we first discovered them, they were already planning colonies on their moon and on Mars, despite having no faster-than-light travel. A new delegate spoke up, one of the Meridian Collective known for their logical approach to problems. What makes you think they would help us? Why would a quarantine species risk themselves for civilizations that rejected them? That is the question I cannot answer, Zirith admitted. But I have studied their cultural transmissions extensively. They have a concept they call heroism, a deeply ingrained psychological drive to protect others, even at great personal cost. Their stories and myths are filled with tales of individuals who sacrifice themselves to save strangers. It is irrational by our standards, but it is fundamental to their nature. High Chancellor Mareth was silent for a long moment, her crystalline structure pulsing with inner light as she processed the implications. If we contact them, we cannot control what happens next. We would be releasing a force we do not understand and cannot contain. We are already facing a force we cannot understand or contain, Zirith replied quietly. The Void Reapers will destroy us all within months. At least the humans are biological beings who can be reasoned with, negotiated with, perhaps even trusted. They are dangerous, yes, but they are not mindless destroyers. The vote took hours. Arguments raged back and forth, with some delegates threatening to withdraw their worlds from the consortium rather than risk contact with the humans. Others pointed out that there would be no consortium left to withdraw from if they did nothing. Finally, as another report came in of a Reaper fleet moving toward the core worlds, the Council reached its decision. By a margin of 7 votes, they authorized Zirith to make contact with humanity. The ambassador worked through the night, carefully crafting a message that would convey both their desperate situation and their peaceful intentions. He included detailed star maps, technical specifications of Void Reaper technology, and most importantly, an offer. The consortium would share everything they had developed over 3,000 years of scientific advancement. Faster-than-light travel, energy shields, medical technology that could extend lifespans indefinitely, and access to thousands of habitable worlds beyond the quarantine zone. As dawn broke over the station, Zirith authorized the transmission. The message shot across space, aimed at the Sol system, traveling faster than light through the quantum communication network. It would reach Earth in approximately 4 hours. Far across the galaxy, in a solar system that had been isolated and monitored for 5 centuries, the signal arrived at Earth's orbital defense network at exactly 0700 hours Greenwich Mean Time. Automated systems immediately flagged it as an unknown transmission type and routed it to the United Colonial Defense Headquarters beneath the Rocky Mountains. Commander Sarah Chen was reviewing routine supply reports when her secure terminal lit up with priority alerts. She had served in the UCD for 20 years, working her way up from shuttle pilot to senior command staff. At 45, she had seen combat in the Martian Independence War and the Belt conflicts, but nothing had prepared her for what appeared on her screen. The translation protocols took 30 minutes to decode the alien language, but when they did, the message was clear. Somewhere out in the stars, an entire civilization was dying, and they were begging Earth for help. Sarah immediately initiated emergency protocols, calling in the full command staff. Within an hour, every major military and political leader on Earth and the colonies was video conferencing into the secure bunker. The Secretary General of the United Colonial Government, David Morrison, stared at the alien message with a mixture of disbelief and calculation. They quarantined us, he said flatly. For 500 years, they watched us and decided we were too dangerous to contact. Now they want our help? General Marcus Webb, commander of the colonial fleet, leaned forward in his chair. His weathered face bore scars from the Belt conflicts, and his eyes held the hard wisdom of someone who had made impossible decisions before. They are offering us everything, Mr. Secretary. The technology in this data package would advance us by centuries. Faster than light travel alone would open up the entire galaxy to human expansion. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, Earth's chief xenobiologist, had been studying the Void Reaper specifications included in the message. These creatures are like nothing in our theoretical models. They exist partially in subspace, which explains why conventional weapons pass through them. But look at this. She highlighted sections of the data. They have a weakness. They need to fully materialize in normal space to feed and reproduce. During those phases, they're vulnerable to kinetic impacts and rapid energy fluctuations. Sarah watched the debate unfold, but her attention kept returning to one part of the message. The aliens had included footage of their worlds burning, of billions of lives being consumed by the Void Reapers. She had seen combat footage before, had even recorded some herself, but this was different. This was genocide on a scale that humanity had never achieved even in its darkest moments. Commander Chin, General Webb said, pulling her from her thoughts. Your assessment? Sarah stood, calling up tactical displays. If we go in force. The colonial fleet has been preparing for interstellar conflict ever since we detected the quarantine satellites. We have 67 capital ships, 300 destroyers and over 1,000 fighter craft. We have weapons these aliens never developed because they never needed them. Kinetic kill vehicles, nuclear-shaped charges, plasma cutters and electromagnetic pulse weapons. Most importantly, we have personnel trained to fight in high-gravity, high-stress environments. The Secretary General looked around the room at the assembled leaders. This is a decision that will define humanity's place in the galaxy. If we refuse, we remain isolated but safe. If we go, we risk everything on behalf of beings who feared us. I want honest opinions. Ambassador Li Wei, Earth's senior diplomat despite having no aliens to negotiate with for his entire career, spoke carefully. From a moral standpoint, we cannot ignore a genocide. From a practical standpoint, this is our chance to break the quarantine and establish ourselves as a galactic power. From a strategic standpoint, if these Void Reapers consume the consortium, they may eventually reach Sol System anyway. Better to fight them now on our terms with allies. The vote was not unanimous, but it was decisive. Humanity would answer the call. General Webb immediately began mobilizing the fleet. Every available ship was prepped for the longest journey humanity had ever attempted. Engineers worked around the clock to retrofit the vessels with the faster-than-light drives using specifications from the alien data package. It was crude and rushed, but Dr. Rodriguez's team assured them it would work. Sarah found herself assigned as tactical coordinator for the entire operation. She would be traveling aboard the flagship, the UCS Indomitable, a massive carrier that could deploy 200 fighters and served as mobile command for the fleet. As she packed her belongings, she wondered what they would find when they reached consortium space. Would the aliens welcome them or fear them? Would humanity prove itself worthy of a place among the stars? Or would they become the very monsters the consortium had always feared? 3 days later, the human fleet assembled in high orbit above Earth. 67 capital ships, hundreds of support vessels, and over 50,000 military personnel prepared for a jump into the unknown. On the bridge of the Indomitable, Sarah watched Earth shrink in the view screen as they moved to the jump coordinates. General Webb gave the order and reality twisted around them. The faster-than-light drives engaged, and the fleet vanished from Sol System in a flash of exotic radiation. They were traveling toward a war that was not their own, to save a civilization that had rejected them, armed with weapons designed for killing and a determination that had been forged in the high gravity and harsh reality of Earth. The Deathworlders were coming and the galaxy would never be the same. Thunder across the stars. The transition from faster-than-light travel felt like being turned inside out and then reassembled in the wrong order. Commander Sarah Chin gripped the arms of her command chair as the Indomitable's bridge seemed to twist around her, the view screen showing impossible colors that human eyes were never meant to perceive. Then, with a sensation like breaking through water's surface, they were back in normal space. The view that greeted them made even the hardened veterans on the bridge fall silent. Consortium Station Epsilon hung in space like a dying jewel, its crystalline structures flickering with emergency lights. But it was the battlefield beyond that captured their attention. Dozens of alien ships, sleek vessels of elegant design that looked more like works of art than instruments of war, drifted as burning wreckage. And moving through the debris field like sharks through blood were the Void Reapers. Sarah had studied the specifications, had reviewed the footage, but nothing prepared her for seeing them in person. They were massive, each one easily twice the size of Earth's largest battleships. Their hulls seemed to shift and flow, solid one moment and translucent the next, as if they existed partially in another dimension. Dark energy crackled along their surfaces, and where they passed, space itself seemed to warp and tear. Navigation reports all ships accounted for, Lieutenant Commander Park announced from his station. We lost 2 destroyers during the jump, sir. Drive failures. The rest of the fleet is forming up in defensive formation. General Webb stood from his command throne, his eyes fixed on the tactical display. Get me a direct line to that station. And have all ships charge weapons but hold fire. I want to know what we're dealing with before we commit. The communication system struggled for a moment to interface with the alien technology, but Dr. Rodriguez's team had prepared well. Within seconds, a holographic image appeared on the bridge. Ambassador Ziritha's alien features looked gaunt and exhausted, but his three eyes widened in what Sarah recognized as shock when he saw the humans. By the ancients, Zirith breathed, his voice translated into English by the communications array. You actually came. We sent the message only days ago. How did you travel here so quickly? We don't waste time when people are dying, General Webb replied bluntly. What's the tactical situation? Zirith quickly brought up displays showing the current battle. 3 Reaper vessels were systematically destroying what remained of the consortium's defense fleet. As they watched, a Reaper ship phased partially out of normal space, passing through the shields of a consortium cruiser as if they were not there. Dark energy beams lanced out, and the cruiser simply ceased to exist, its matter dissolving into component atoms. They are moving toward the station, Zirith explained. Once they finish with our fleet, they will consume everyone here. 20,000 souls from a dozen species. We have perhaps 30 minutes before they reach effective range. Sarah was already working at her tactical station, her mind processing the battlefield geometry with the instincts developed through years of combat. She pulled up the specifications of the Void Reapers again, cross-referencing them with the real-time sensor data the Indomitable was collecting. There, she thought. There's the pattern. General, she called out. I got something. The Reapers phase in and out of normal space, but there's a rhythm to it. They fully materialize for approximately 12 seconds during each attack cycle. During that window, they're solid enough for conventional weapons to hit. Webb moved to her station, studying her analysis. 12 seconds is not much time. It is for us, Sarah replied. Our fighter pilots train in high-gravity environments. Their reaction times are faster than what these aliens are used to, and our kinetic weapons travel at relativistic speeds. We don't need fancy energy beams. We just need to hit them with enough mass moving fast enough. The general nodded slowly, a grim smile crossing his scarred face. All right, Commander. You've got operational control of the fighter wings. Show these Reapers why Earth didn't develop fancy shields and energy weapons. We perfected the art of throwing rocks really hard. Sarah opened the fleet-wide tactical channel. All fighter wings, this is Commander Chin. Launch immediately and form up by squadron. We're going in hot. Your targets are designated Reaper 1, 2, and 3. Each wing will focus on a single target. Wait for my mark, then weapons free with kinetic payloads. Across the fleet, launch bays open like flowers blooming in space. Human fighter craft poured out, smaller and more agile than anything the consortium used. They were built for atmospheric combat, designed to handle gravity and G-forces that would crush alien pilots. In the zero gravity of space, they moved with predatory grace. Captain Marcus Webb, no relation to the general despite sharing a surname, led the first squadron from his fighter-designated Valkyrie 1. He was 32 years old, had flown combat missions during the Belt conflicts, and had never lost a wingman in 3 years of service. His hands moved across the controls with practiced efficiency as his squadron formed up around him. All Valkyries report ready, he transmitted. Awaiting targeting data. Sarah fed the tactical information directly to the fighter computers. The pilots would see their approach vectors, their firing windows, and most importantly, the 12-second materialization cycles she had identified. Stand by, all wings. Reapers are maintaining their attack pattern. Reaper 1 will materialize in 20 seconds. Valkyrie wing, that's your target. Marcus felt his heartbeat slow as combat focus took over. He had done this hundreds of times in simulation and dozens in actual combat. The target was bigger and stranger, but the principles remained the same. Speed, aggression, and overwhelming firepower applied at the critical moment. Mark, Sarah's voice cut through the channel. Reaper 1 materializing now. The massive Void Reaper phased into normal space, its dark hull suddenly solid as it prepared to fire on a consortium destroyer. Marcus triggered his engines, feeling the acceleration press him back into his seat with force that would have killed an unaugmented human. His fighter leaped forward, covering the distance in seconds. Valkyrie wing, weapons free, he transmitted. 20 fighters opened fire simultaneously. Their weapons were simple by galactic standards, just electromagnetically accelerated slugs of dense metal. But those slugs were moving at a significant fraction of the speed of light, and they carried kinetic energy measured in megatons. The Void Reaper never had a chance to react. The kinetic round struck its hull in a devastating barrage, each impact releasing energy equivalent to a nuclear weapon. The Reaper's exotic hull, designed to phase through energy shields and ignore beam weapons, had no defense against simple mass and velocity. The impacts tore through its structure, shattering whatever internal organs or systems kept it alive. The creature thrashed once, dark energy bleeding from multiple wounds, and then it began to break apart. Its death throes released a pulse of exotic radiation that scrambled sensors across the battlefield, but when the interference cleared, Reaper 1 was nothing but expanding debris. The consortium station erupted in shocked communications. Sarah could hear dozens of alien voices chattering in amazement and disbelief. They had been fighting the Reapers for months without inflicting a single casualty, and the humans had destroyed one in less than 30 seconds. All wings good kill, Sarah transmitted. Reaper 2 is your next target. Griffin Wing, you're up. The second attack went even better than the first. The Reapers were intelligent, but they had never encountered an enemy that used purely kinetic weapons. Their tactical programming had no defense protocols for projectiles moving at relativistic speeds. Griffin Wing caught Reaper 2 as it materialized to attack the station itself, and another devastating barrage reduced it to fragments. Reaper 3 finally recognized the threat and tried to adapt. Instead of maintaining its attack pattern, it began phasing in and out of normal space erratically, never staying materialized for more than a few seconds. But Sarah had anticipated this. She had held back the heavy capital ships for exactly this situation. "You see us Indomitable, weapons free," General Webb ordered. "Show them what a battleship can do." The Indomitable was not as large as a Void Reaper, but it was built with Earth's high-gravity metallurgy and carried weapons that would have seemed primitive to the consortium. Its main guns were mass drivers, essentially enormous railguns that could accelerate 10-ton projectiles to incredible velocities. When the Reaper materialized for its next attack, the Indomitable fired all 6 main guns simultaneously. The projectiles crossed the distance in heartbeats. The Reaper tried to phase out, but it was not fast enough. The impacts hit like the fist of an angry god, and the creature simply exploded. The shockwave from its death rattled ships across the battlefield, but when the sensors cleared, Reaper 3 was gone. The battlefield fell silent. The remaining consortium ships drifted in space, their crews stunned by what they had just witnessed. On the bridge of the Indomitable, General Webb allowed himself a small smile. "That's how you fight a war," he said quietly. Ambassador Ziritha's holographic image reappeared, and for the first time since the crisis began, hope showed on his alien features. "You destroyed them. In minutes, you destroyed what we could not defeat in months. How is this possible?" General Webb looked at the alien ambassador with an expression that mixed sympathy and grim satisfaction. "You built your civilization in peace, Ambassador. You developed technology to explore, to heal, to understand. We respect that. But humanity grew up on a world that tried to kill us every day. We developed technology to survive, to fight, to win. You never needed to think about warfare. We never had the luxury of not thinking about it." Sarah was already analyzing the sensor data from the engagement, her mind racing ahead to the larger implications. "General, we need to talk about the strategic situation. If 3 Reapers were attacking this station, there must be more." The consortium data suggested dozens of Reaper vessels spread across their territory. Webb nodded. "Get the ambassador back on the line. We need intelligence, and we need it now." Within the hour, the human command staff was meeting with consortium leadership in a hastily arranged conference. The cultural differences were jarring. The aliens preferred low lighting and carefully modulated voices, while the humans filled rooms with harsh light and spoke in direct, sometimes aggressive tones. But necessity bred cooperation. High Chancellor Mareth displayed star maps showing the full extent of the Reaper invasion. Red markers indicated destroyed worlds, amber showed systems under attack, and yellow represented systems that would likely fall within weeks. The scope of the disaster was staggering. 47 worlds destroyed, 23 more under siege, and Reaper fleet groups numbering in the hundreds. "Your technology is impressive," the Chancellor admitted, her crystalline form pulsing with what Sarah was learning to recognize as distress. "But even with your weapons, how can 67 ships defeat hundreds of Reapers spread across dozens of star systems?" "We don't," General Webb replied bluntly. "We do what humans have always done when facing overwhelming odds. We adapt, we improvise, and we hit them where they're weakest. The Reapers are not a coordinated military force. They're more like a swarm of predators, each group hunting independently. That's their weakness." He pulled up a tactical overlay on the star map. "We split our fleet into fast response groups. Each group carries enough firepower to handle small Reaper formations. We use the consortium's faster-than-light communications to coordinate. When a Reaper group attacks a world, we jump in, destroy them quickly, and jump to the next target. We turn their swarm tactics against them." Dr. Rodriguez added her analysis. "The Reapers are also feeding and reproducing as they go. Each world they consume makes them stronger. But they have to fully materialize to feed. That makes them vulnerable. If we can hit them during feeding cycles, we can inflict maximum casualties. Ambassador Zirith studied the proposed strategy, his 3 eyes blinking in sequence. This is remarkably aggressive. You would be constantly jumping from battle to battle with no rest, no time to repair damage or replace losses. That's called warfare, Ambassador, Marcus Webb said from his position at the table. He had been called in to represent the fighter pilot's perspective. You fight until you win or until you can't fight anymore. There's no middle ground. The consortium leaders exchanged glances, communicating through methods the humans could not perceive. Finally, High Chancellor Mireth spoke. We accept your strategy. What do you need from us? Everything, General Webb replied. We need your repair facilities, your supply chains, your intelligence networks, and your crews to learn how to service our ships. We also need any consortium vessels that can be retrofitted with kinetic weapons. You might not have built them for war, but we can change that. Over the next 72 hours, Consortium Station Epsilon transformed into a forward operating base for human military operations. Alien engineers worked alongside human technicians, learning the brutal simplicity of kinetic weaponry. Consortium cruisers had their elegant energy weapons removed and replaced with massive railguns. The aliens were horrified by the crude nature of the weapons, but they could not argue with their effectiveness. Sarah found herself working with a Varathian engineer named Keleth, teaching him the principles of kinetic warfare. He struggled to understand why humans preferred simple mass drivers over sophisticated energy beams. Because they work, Sarah explained patiently. Energy shields can be modulated, reflected, absorbed. But you cannot argue with physics. Mass times velocity equals force. Hit something hard enough and fast enough and it breaks. Every time. No exceptions. But it is so barbaric, Keleth protested. There is no elegance, no sophistication. Sarah smiled grimly. War is not elegant. War is about achieving objectives and surviving. Everything else is luxury. The first human strike group jumped out from Station Epsilon on the 4th day. 3 destroyers, 1 carrier, and 20 fighters under the command of Captain Jennifer Rodriguez, the Doctor's younger sister and a veteran destroyer captain. Their target was the agricultural world of the Amine, where a Reaper group was in the process of consuming the population. They arrived to find 5 Reaper vessels feeding on the planet, their dark forms descending into the atmosphere like malevolent gods. Captain Rodriguez did not hesitate. She ordered an immediate attack, catching the Reapers while they were vulnerable and partially materialized. The battle lasted 18 minutes. The human ships took damage, 1 destroyer was forced to withdraw with engine failures, but when it was over, all 5 Reapers were destroyed. The surviving population of the Amine, nearly 2 billion souls, watched in awe as the human ships jumped away toward their next target. Word spread across consortium space like wildfire. The Deathworlders had come and they were winning. More victories followed. The Battle of Nexus 7 saw human fighters destroy a Reaper breeding ground, preventing a new generation from maturing. The defense of the crystal colonies demonstrated that even Reaper super heavy variants could be killed with sufficient firepower. And at the Battle of the Shattered Rings, General Webb personally commanded the fleet in a massive engagement that destroyed 23 Reapers in a single devastating assault. But victory came at a cost. Human casualties mounted. Ships were damaged or destroyed. Pilots pushed themselves beyond human limits, some dying from exhaustion or making mistakes born of fatigue. The consortium medical facilities struggled to treat human injuries, their bodies so much denser and more resilient than any species they had encountered before. Sarah stood in the medical bay of Station Epsilon, looking at rows of wounded human soldiers. Some would recover, others would be invalided home. She felt the weight of command pressing on her shoulders. They were winning the war, but at what price? Ambassador Zirith found her there, his alien features showing something that might have been compassion. You have saved us, Commander. Billions of lives exist because you answered our call. The price you have paid is the price of doing what's right, Sarah interrupted gently. We chose to come here. Every person in this fleet volunteered knowing they might not go home. That's what it means to be human. We fight for what we believe in even when it costs us everything. The Varathian ambassador was silent for a long moment. We feared you for so long. We thought your violence made you monsters. But we were wrong. Your capacity for violence is matched by your capacity for compassion. You are the most dangerous beings in the galaxy, but also perhaps the most noble. Sarah looked back at the wounded soldiers, then out at the stars visible through the medical bay's viewport. The war was not over. More Reapers remained, more battles waited to be fought. But for the first time since arriving in consortium space, she believed they could actually win. The Deathworlders had answered the call, and they would see it through to the end no matter what it cost them.